And now, the conclusion of Jack Kilby's conversation with Marcus Tenney and the conclusion of our limited podcast series, Front of the Line with Jack Kilby.
I mean, it's just it's definitely an inspiring place, to hear something like that. And like you said, the completely different interpretation that you get out of it. But yeah, man, this like melding of, the melding of genres, and all our influences. Yeah. It's only getting to be more and more, like I just feel bad for the folks who are born in 50 years because they're going to have so much. It's gotten to the point where there's literally just so much music to be able to check out now. We haven't even talked about like Debussy and like Bach and Beethoven, like in so much of where, the Rachmaninoff, right? Like I'm trying to listen to more like solo piano stuff so that I'm like, man, like what kind of harmony are they really playing back then? It's like we've all been dealing with, like Quincy Jones said in his documentary, we've been dealing with the same 12 notes for a very long time. And everybody's just making stuff the same, at least in, the Western sort of culture that we got. But it's really amazing what we've been able to do. And it's really a drag that we've sort of divided it up into these genres. There's a clip in that documentary where he says the same thing too, about how it's really kind of not helpful at all, maybe to the listener, but not to the musician to be able to have to divide these, music up into genres, like I don't want to be called a jazz musician. I just want to be a musician, right? Yeah. I don't want to, I don't want to just be a drummer. I want to be a musician. I feel like that's a common sentiment among a lot of folks our age.
Yeah. There's a lot of under the hoodness that gets exposed with that, that sometimes can be confusing, The genre stuff, I feel like it helps and it hurts. It helps. Yeah. It helps I feel like it should be restricted to a learning atmosphere. You know what I mean? I feel like when you're learning about music, then, you kind of, that's because that to me is the only place where genres are really beneficial, is in a learning environment. It's like, okay, because, it's learning different styles, like, St. Louis, like blues versus Memphis blues, stuff like that. You know what I mean? That's like,
right.
That's like for an educational standpoint. But then I feel like it also gets like, it's an under the hood thing that gets exposed to a lot of different areas, and then it just becomes muddied with its like uses. It becomes used in ways that are not beneficial to the culture, I feel like.
Right.
Because trying to divide, stuff into categories in terms of like what people can and can't do and, who should listen to the music, that's where it becomes damaging. Because there's a lot of different types of music out there, but it's all music. It all has that intrinsic value to it. And the only way you can really get that value is by sitting down and listening to it. You know what I mean? Like, It just becomes so misconstrued in so many different ways. But like when you have these labels that are telling people implicitly whether or not to like stuff or to promote stuff or to push stuff or whatever, then you automatically turn people off to listening to it. And then that turns the whole purpose of what this whole thing is all about off. Communication.
Right. Yep.
Like it's a whole fake news thing. That's why that becomes damaging, because you're literally just saying don't listen to them.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that cuts off all of their ideas right there. That's our primary form of communication. That cuts off all the ideas. So no matter how many good ideas are in there, how many inspiring thoughts, how many dreams, whatever, you cut all of that off when you say don't listen to me. I feel like that's what genres do to records sometimes. Unintended a lot of times, but it does it, and that's messed up. I think that's not right.
Yeah, it's
but
just, my
humble opinion on that.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, again, like when I made this record, it was more like I was definitely aware, of sort of at least the lack of original material. I think there's only maybe two or three original tunes on the album, but it was like, yo, this sounds good. It's like a happy album, and I think that people will like enjoy listening to it. I had to sort of push my like jazz disease ego aside and be like, okay, well, I might not be like, reinventing the wheel here, but at least it's something that, like, when people listen to it, are they going to smile? Are they going to feel good? Down to that sort of bare bones level of acceptance and acknowledgement. Like when someone puts it on, are they going to feel good or bad when they listen to it?
Yeah.
That was definitely one of the things that propelled me to at least like push through and sort of, like finish it for what it was.
Yeah, I mean, that to me is the best place for records to come from. Just, I think as long as the records come from that place, there won't be any problems.
Right.
And also, there's also there's kind of a little bit of a lag in the way people digest music these days, just because the way that we're putting it out is unnatural even for our own ecosystem that humans created, let alone, natural in terms of whatever. But to have music and records accessible to this many people this fast is weird. Just because, like,
right.
The idea of making a platinum album, like Migos, that song Bad and Bougie, that song is platinum. Quavo said they made that song in 15 minutes. So you made a platinum hit in 15 minutes. That goes back to that, you're going to set the ceiling bar so high and the floor bar raises with it. And so then it's like, wow, you made this for 15 minutes. And then now it's like, so since people are being bombarded with so much music, you have to you have to invest so much more as an artist now.
Oh, for sure.
In terms of like what you show to people, because you got to be doing so many things yourself, just because the costs are so much higher. And so, in terms of not just money, but just in terms of like sweat equity, just in terms of like intellectual ability, just in terms of creative ability and how you merge the intellectual and the creative ability. You have to, like doing all that stuff in conjunction with learning records and learning music and trying to work with the sounds of your particular instrument, your particular craft. All of that stuff just becomes so daunting after a while. You create all of that stuff, but then it also causes people on the other end to be kind of overwhelmed by it, because it's like, oh, well, we're running into this person who does all of this stuff, and they make all of these records, and they do all of this stuff, but I had never heard of them, so I'm not going to listen to their record.
Right.
And it's like, okay, you're not going to listen to it, not the first one, not the second one, not the third one, not the fourth one, not the 8th one, not the 20th one. I'm going to listen to the 50th record. And then that's, at the same time, that's going to be the lighting of the wick. So it goes into and then, they're going to go from 50 to 49 to 48, and if they like the stuff, they're going to keep going. And then they listen to everything. So that, and I feel like, one balance on one side creates another imbalance on the other side. And so it's like, we put records out at an abnormal speed, in an abnormal way. You can stream it to a device that you always carry in your pocket at any time. And so on the other side, it's like, well, people are just going to be weird about listening to them now. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, because I don't know how many times I've had to tell people about the records that I've been making,
Oh,
and I'm sure every other artist goes through this too. But it's just like, how many times do I have to tell you? It's already out. It's here. It's there. Haven't you seen me posting this? Have you? Oh, right, I turn that off.
Like every day, and it sucks. And you have to, right? Like,
and so, that abnormal behavior is a result of us having so many avenues to put music out. If it was just iTunes, and that was the only way to get music, and like maybe 10% of the population that listens to music now actually listen to music. If our music was just as good, it would pop right out through the top, no problem.
Right.
Just because but now, everyone's got Logic Pro, everyone's got GarageBand, everyone's got a drum app, everyone's got a guitar, everyone's got this. So it's just like that playing field is very saturated. And so now it becomes, now my time is spent learning how people listen to records and how they digest the stuff, because that's the last frontier in a certain way.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you put it like that, but you're so right. Yeah, you're really so right. We have like this totally different, I definitely don't see it the way that they do, and I need to.
Sure.
But I'm just in it from like, hey, I made a thing and I think it's good, but now it's like, how many folks got Instagram accounts where they call themselves producers, and it's just,
exactly.
They're like competent enough in GarageBand.
Yeah, and they make, they know how to make videos that to instantly catch people's attention. So they have 10,000 followers. And so their account is opened up in certain ways that streamline things for them so that they, and it's just getting those things, like trying to find those ways, but do it in a more creative way,
Right.
Always.
It's like, okay, you clearly figured out how like trap music works, right? Like the sort of formula for like trap or house. And now you're just kind of like exploiting the fact that you get how it works and it's bare bones,
Yeah, some of it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like getting into that stuff, like trap is an interesting one just because like I came at it from a standpoint of like, yeah, I want to start doing this. This stuff sounds cool. But then once you start like really diving into discographies and stuff, finding all of those different tapes that people put out before they got famous and like listen to all this stuff, the nuance in the different producers is amazing. It's like a fingerprint.
Sure. Yeah, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, like, certain producers like Metro Boomin, this is a newer producer named Turbo, Zaytoven, like all of the hit makers right now, they're making all of these beats and like you listen to, like, you hear like a Future record that's produced by Metro Boomin. And it's like, okay, so we're going to listen to Future's record. And like people would just be like, oh, what are you listening for? What are you listening for? It's the same song over and over again. It's like, no, it's actually not. There's lots of differences in the vocals and there's lots of differences in the actual beat too, because now that the market for that stuff has been saturated, you have a lot more room because it's kind of like at a high school where the football team like wins the state championship every year. That football team has brand new helmets. That football team's got brand new everything because those games are always packed. They bring people in. They win the championship. They're really good. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so having that sport pays for all the other sports because it makes so much money. And so it's like the same thing with hip hop. There's so much money in it that you can have just a hip hop producer scene where these guys are spending lots of money on the front end to get sounds and make sounds and get equipment to find new sounds. Because once they get their music into a certain space, then the payoff for it is enough to cover the expenses and then also make money on the back end. So it leaves all of that room for creativity. In the same way, Blue Note left a lot of room for creativity with the jazz records. Because I'm sure if no one was putting those records out, you wouldn't have the level of creativity that, or at least it wouldn't be as high if there wasn't an outlet to put it out. You know what I mean? There's got to be some way to follow the whole process because at the end of the day, that creativity was meant to be displayed for people to enjoy. So like, if we couldn't hear all of them Train records because, Train's situation might have been different. He couldn't get access to a studio to subsequently get the record deals that, if any one of those factors changed, then, we might not have heard as many of those things. And so that brings, with the trap stuff, it's just kind of like, if there wasn't so much money in there, you wouldn't have all of these different nuances in the production because you got these producers who are creating these discographies from their college dorm room and they're making this incredible beat with these trap sounds, but they're staying within a commercial lane because that's the only thing that will sell at the level that they needed to sell at. So it's interesting to see how creative they get in the creative lane, or in the commercial lane, rather.
No, I got to check some of that stuff out. You definitely inspired me to...
That's a very skinny alleyway in a very specific area.
Yeah. No, but
yeah, there's a lot of the bigger hip hop producers. They make a lot of interesting stuff, very intricate beats. Because just thinking about it from the context of this is going to be played every hour on the hour,
right?
And if a song, like let's just say a song stays at number one for like 20 weeks, that means that enough people were listening to that song over and over and over again for 20 weeks. That song has to be great in order to get millions. You know what I mean? It's got, and not just great in terms of like musical prowess or great in terms of creativity. It's got to be great in terms of sonics. It's got to be great in terms of the way it was put out. It's got to be great in terms of the way it was put together. For the masses to listen to something over and over again for 20 weeks in the face of all these new records coming out.
Yep.
That's what blows me away about their trap stuff, is that they're able to put those beats together in a way that is pleasing enough to people to make them want to listen to it over and over again for 20 weeks. That is craziness.